Hello, welcome to our part 3 ng Lecture 7, Fluids. So in this juncture, pag-aaralan naman natin ang buoyancy. So when you say buoyancy, before that, sige. So actually una nag-aral ng buoyancy is si Archimedes. So he first studied buoyant forces exerted by fluids because an object may float on the surface because of a upward pressure exerted by water. So if familiar kayo sa story niya, siya yung ano parang ginamit niya yung king's crown, I guess. Tapos to determine whether or not that king's crown have a totoong gold yung ano. What if ilubog ko yun sa tubig? Yun yung nasa isip niya. And natuklasan niya actually nung nilubog niya yun, tumaas yung water level. Then parang sumigaw-sigaw siya sa labas na nakahubad. So if you're familiar with that folk story, I don't really know if that's true. However, parang alam natin true na siya nga nakapag-aral ng buoyancy. So, Archimedes principle. So yung bata ito sa naging findings ni Archimedes. So when an object is completely or partially immersed or submerged in a fluid, the fluid exerts an upward force on the object equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object. So we're weight of the object fluid. So ang sinasabi dito is that the, what do you call this? The density. So yung buoyant force na apply na ba ng object, so suppose ito yung object na nasa tubig siya. Yung buoyant force applied by an object is equal to the rho GV. So rho is the density of the water or the fluid. G is the acceleration due to gravity. And yung V is the volume of the displaced volume or the volume of this object. Same lang naman yun, which is also equal to M times G, where M is the mass of the displaced. Am I right? The mass of the object or the mass of the displaced object? The mass of the displaced. The mass of the object, kung static naman siya, times the gravity. The gravity. So, yun lang naman yung, what do you call this? Yun lang naman yung, okay, M is mass of the object. Yun lang naman yung, natin, yung lecture dito. Magre-revolve lang dito. So, let's actually go to the problems na. For a fifth problem, the volume of the airspace in the passenger compartment of a 1,800 kilogram car is 5 cubic meters. The volume of the motor and the front. May recording? Yeah. And front wheels is 0.75 cubic meters. And the volume of the rear wheels, gas tank, and trunk is 0.8 cubic meters. Water cannot enter these two regions. So, hindi niya ma-enter yung motor, tapos yung rear wheels, gas tank, trunk. Sama na yung front wheels. The car rolls into a lake, lumubog. At first, no water enters the passenger compartment. How much of the water is below how much of the car is below the water surface with the car floating? So when we say how much, we're finding the volume of the car. Later natin solve. And for letter B, as water slowly enters, the car sinks. How many cubic meters of water are in the car as it disappears below the water surface? So the car with heavy load in the trunk remains horizontal. So for letter A, at first, no water enters the passenger compartment. So that means to say that the volume, that means to say that the weight of the car is completely by the car itself lang. So yung car lang mismo yung nag-apply ng weight. So we're just gonna use the basic buoyant force formula, which is rho Vg, which is equal to the mass of the car times the gravity. We can cancel this G. We have the rho of the fluid times the volume of the displaced fluid, or the volume submerged, is equal to the mass of the car. So to find the submerged fluid volume, it's equal to the mass of the car divided by the density of the fluid. So here, since water, I will assume that the density is 1,000 to simplify calculations. Wala kasi sinaming temperature. But we'll just assume this value. Okay. So, ano ang mass niya? That is 1,800 kilogram divided by the volume, the density of the car, which is the density of the fluid, which is 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter. And as such, the volume of the displaced fluid, or the volume of the fluid submerged in water, is 1.8 cubic meters. So that's our answer for letter A. Again, the volume of the submerged fluid is just equal to the volume of the the volume of the displaced fluid is equal to the volume of the submerged part of the object. Okay, so for part 2, for letter B, as water slowly enters the car sinks. How many cubic meters of water are in the car as it disappears below the water surface? It means to say that nag-equalize na yung buoyant force dun sa wave. So, ang mangyayari na ngayon is that ganun pa rin naman. Buoyant force is equal to weight. So, FB is equal to rho GV, rho VG cos mg. So, kakancel natin ng G. We have the rho of the fluid times the volume of the fluid. We're finding the volume of the fluid is equal to the total mass. But now, yung total mass, actually, yung mass nitong car, nadagdagan na ng mass nung fluid. You get what I mean? Nadagdagan na ng mass nung pumasok na fluid. So that will be the mass, the rho of the fluid, times the volume of the fluid inside plus the mass of the car. Okay. Am I correct? So the volume actually, so the volume inside, the volume of the fluid. Oh yes. We're finding cubic meters of water that went inside the car. So we're finding this. So we have like, can subtract. So that will be the, divide muna natin kaya by rho F to simplify the calculations. So we have the volume of the fluid displaced is equal to the volume of the fluid inside plus the mass of the car divided by the volume and the density of the fluid. So to find VI, so that's VI is equal to the volume of the fluid displaced minus the MC over rho F. So actually, again, sinasabi ko, ang volume of the fluid is equal to the volume of the submerged object or the submerged part of the object. In this case, yung buong sasakyan na yun nakasubmerge, so we're just gonna add the collective volumes of each compartments. So it's gonna be the volume of the fluid inside is equal to ano yung ano to? Welcome 5 for the passenger compartment. Meron kang 0.75 for the motor and front wheels. And meron kang 0.8 for the rear wheels, gas tank, and trunk. That's in cubic meters. Minus, ano yung mass ng car? That is 1,800 kilograms. Divided by the density of the fluid. Again, we assume it's 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter. And thus, ang volume of the liquid inside is equal to, calculate, 5 plus 0.75 plus 0.8 minus 1.8. It's 4.75. 4.75 cubic meters. And that's our answer for the volume that went inside the passenger compartment. Okay. So now next problem. Ito mas madali ito. A cork float has a volume of 4 cubic centimeters and a density of 207 kilogram per cubic meter. First, what is the volume of the cork beneath the surface when the cork floats in water? So actually, ilist natin na mag-given. Meron tayong volume ng cork, which is 4 cubic centimeter. And if you're gonna convert it, we're gonna multiply it by 1 over 100. Kasi 100 centimeter per cubic, per meter cube. So that's gonna be 4 divided by 100 cube. That is 4 times 10 raised to negative 6. Cubic meters. Okay. Now, ang density niya is just 207 kilogram per cubic meter. Density ng cork. Ang density ng water will assume again as 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter. Okay. We're finding the volume of the cork beneath the surface. So, parang ganito siya. Tubig yan, and ito yung cork. Mas malaki yan nandito sa taas kasi sa baba. We're finding this part. Find that, we're just gonna use the buoyant force. So, F sub B is equal to mg. Mg ba? The mass of the cork times the gravitational acceleration, which is equal to the rho, the v, and the g. Just gonna cancel the g. We're finding the volume of the cork beneath the surface. So this is gonna be the volume of the cork beneath the surface submerged v sub s is equal to the m of the cork times the density of the water or the fluid. The density of water naman yan. This is C. However, wala tayong mass of the cork. However, remember, density is equal to volume, mass over volume. And thus, para mahanap yung mass, it will be just the density of the cork times the volume of the cork divided by the density of water. So, ano yung density ng cork? It's 207 kilogram per cubic meter. Times, ano yung volume ng pork? That is 4 times 10 raised to negative 6. This is the volume of the whole pork, cubic meters. This portion will provide the mass divided by the ano yung density ng tubig, that is 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter. And thus, ang volume ng submerged portion will be 207 times 4 times 10 raised to negative 6 divided by 1,000. It's even smaller. It's, surprise, 8.28 times 10 raised to negative 2, 3, 6, 7, negative 7. This is so small. Pero malaki na yun, to be honest. This is relatively small actually. Since now cubic meters. Pero yan yung answer for letter A. How about the letter B? For letter B, what downward force is needed to submerge the cork completely? So, mangyari dito, fluid. Then we're like, no one answered this. We're finding the force. So that yung ano ngayon, find the force F such that kailangan mag-submerge to. So that will be the F sub B is equal to the F, which is rho V G, which is equal to mg. Okay, actually, tingnan mo. We're just gonna get this. We're just finding the force. We're just finding the force that's needed to submerge that. So that's gonna be aning rho. That is, this is the rho of the fluid, the volume of the cork, and G. Ang rho ng fluid is 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter. Ang volume ng cork, that is 4 times 10 raised to negative 6. Am I right? Yes, it's cubic meters. And 9.8 meters per square seconds. So we're multiplying that 1,000 times 4 times 10 raised to negative 6. That's 9.8. That's just S sub B equals 0.0392 newtons. So that includes the weight naturally. If you're gonna like include the weight, that's 207 times 1,000. No, 207 times 4 times that is the negative 6 times 9.8. Ito yung weight niya. 8.11 millinewton. This one is 39.2 millinewton. So this one is the force needed to submerge that completely. Pero if you're just like saying the force added, what force need to be added to submerge that completely? You're just gonna subtract this by this. However, since sinanap na naman yung downward force needed, then this will be our answer. And yan na naman yun. Yun na naman yung Archimedes principle and yung buoyant forces. So, that's it for a third part of our lecture. And para sa fourth part will be the longest and the most exciting part ng ating lecture 7. Papunta pa lang tayo sa exciting part. So yeah, yun lang naman yan. See you in the next video.